Greetings, traveler. Recently, a traveler named Danislav Petrov asked a question about what a game designer does day to day. His situation is that he recently started creating his own video games. He has a background in psychology, which is, I think, a great academic area to start understanding human behavior and how to delight players. But he's struggling right now with the technical aspect of making games, namely programming, working with bugs, and so on. He wants to know specifically how he can approach this aspect of game development, the technical part, and specifically what to do day to day as a game designer. Specifically, he says, if I become a game designer, what will I do day to day? That picture is really blurry to me right now. Can you give me advice on this? So today, I want to answer this question. I want to talk a little bit about what I used to do and what I do as a game designer in my day-to-day tasks, and hopefully how that relates to the technical aspect of game design as well. So not just writing a game design document with just natural language and words, but how does that interact with the technical aspect of coding a game or using a scripting language or visual style programming or blueprint or something to create your game. So let's talk about these two aspects today. My name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for over 14 years now, and when I started working as a game designer, I thought that my job was simply to think about cool features and talk about them with the team. Quickly I realized that that wasn't nearly enough for developing a well-rounded, successful video game. The reason was because having a cool idea is of course the beginning of all this, but our goal as game developers is not to think of cool ideas, it's to deliver working video games to other people in a form that they can enjoy them, of course. So all the cool ideas in the world don't amount to half as much as a good, fully developed video game does. So in my experience, after we get all these great ideas about what to put in our games, actually carrying it through to the end and seeing our game through to release and making sure it reaches our audience is our highest responsibility in this case. So with that in mind, what do I do as a game designer in my day-to-day work? Well, first of all, we talked about how I like to separate game design into vision and then pillars and features. I've talked about this a lot before, but a very quick way to go through it is that first we set a vision, or I set a vision for the game. This is something that affects the entire game. It's a feeling or a goal or an objective or an aspiration that is present at every part of the game. The game itself is doing its best to support this one vision. This vision can be something like airships are my vehicle to freedom, for example, or snowboarding is the only time when I feel alive, or taking a walk in the woods is beautiful but also scary, like the game that Danislav is working on at the moment. So the vision is just something your game wants to make shine through all of its features and all of its graphics, right? So the vision by itself, of course, is not enough to create a game on its own. We need to have a way to actualize the feeling or the emotion or the objective of the vision into the game. And the pillars are next step to doing that. So each pillar basically describes a method through which the vision will become real in our game. So in my case with the airship game, then having the airship be able to fly around the world and explore it shows how the freedom aspect of the vision takes form inside the game. Also, I knew that I wanted a specific type of combat, a specific type of look for the game. So because these things are so super, also the capability to do both multiplayer and single player, those things populate this layer of pillars here. So we're just talking about single player, multiplayer. We're talking about the airship being the main entity in the game versus a human or controlling multiple airships at a time, for example. So this sets us down a very specific path for the direction of the game. Anything we do from here on will be down this direction. And of course, is it necessary to have just a single way to implement all these things? Of course not. Even given the same 4 pillars, a different person could come up with an entirely different game to implement these pillars. But this is just to help us make sure that we're going down the same direction and we don't lose our way down the line. So now that we have set our 3 or 4 pillars, then we need to set the features of the game to support all these pillars. And again, these features can be many and usually are many for most video games, but the basic idea here is that we spoke how airships and exploration is very important for this kind of game. So one of the features of the game is of course the airship. So when we talk about the airship, we have to be as specific as possible here and say what kind of airship it is, how big it is, how quickly it moves, how does it do its combat, and so on, how it does exploration, how it gathers resources, all of that stuff. So here it's very important to put all of this information into the game design document, specifically under the features part. And each one of these features must serve one of these pillars, which in turn serves the vision of the game. This is a very easy way to know if things that we're adding to the game are in line with the direction of the game and we're not veering off into some direction that just doesn't serve the game, right? So we need to be very specific with the things we're designing here. And this was a really difficult point for me when I was starting to come up with this framework, because very often you don't know what the game's final image will be like. You don't know how many features you want, or you don't know how many features are enough, how many weapons are enough in the game, how many abilities, how many characters, how long the story should be, how many levels do you need in your game, how many areas. Of course, this is a part of uncertainty, I think, for any game designer working on something new, but something that really helped me narrow down this crazy universe of possible alternatives and possible things to add to the game is, well, what do I need to get started? What is the absolute bare minimum set of features that I need to deliver on this vision and these pillars? So of course I could make a storyline for this game that takes 1,000 years to complete, and of course I could create 1 billion levels for this game. But what is the minimum number of features and levels and characters and story length and so on that I need to bring this game to life? And why do I stress this point so much? Because I'm a firm believer, through my experience all these years now working in the games industry, that once you have that minimum solid version of the game, and I'm not talking about a prototype, and I'm not talking about a 5-minute demo of the game, I'm talking about the minimum version of the game that delivers on all of these things. So fully shows off the vision of the game and fully implements all of the pillars. So once you have that minimum version of the game that delivers on all of these promises, all of these development aims, and the game comes together and it's fun to play and people seem to enjoy it, then is an excellent opportunity to think where you want to go from there to next. So do you want to make a second game? Do you want to make an expansion? Do you want to make gacha packs to add more characters to the game? Do you want to do free updates and add more weapons? Do you want to improve the balancing? All of these are possibilities you can do in the game, but that is the correct moment to think about it. If you start thinking about these things in the middle of development or at any other point before the game is released, in my experience all you end up with is just spinning your wheels and rewriting and recalculating and rethinking absolutely everything about the game, and you never get to the point where you have a complete product that you can show to people. You're always improving things in secret. So in my experience, of course, that's one thing you can do, but having a complete game, getting feedback on it, hopefully making some money from selling it, gives you much more clarity on what people want to see about the game, what people enjoy about the game, and where to move forward. That's why I stressed this minimum amount of features so much here. So anyway, let's say that this process is complete and you have the absolute minimum list of features you need to bring your vision to life, bring your idea to life. Then is where we come to the day-to-day stuff. So on the day-to-day, there's basically only two things I am concerned with as a game designer when it comes to my daily tasks. So one is writing the features doc or the game design document. So if the pillars or the vision hasn't been completed yet, of course we want to complete those first. But afterwards we want to complete the features. So we talked about the airship, how big the airship should be, what should it look like, how should it behave, how quickly does it fly, how much fuel does it need. All the details that we think are necessary for our gameplay must be described in the document. If they're not described in the document, I can very much promise you that there is no guarantee they will be implemented, since there is no reference about what should be implemented in the game in the first place. So putting all the things that we believe are necessary for delivering this minimum version of the game, having all these things in the document is the first thing we should be focusing on. Once this step is complete, once we have fully described the feature and all its related functions, then we can think about the implementation. And I know that many studios and many people choose the approach of doing things in parallel. So for example, start working on the game design, but programmers at the same time can make some prototypes of some engine tricks or engine features they want to check. Artists can start working on beautiful art and 3D models and all that stuff. Marketing people can start thinking about the marketing campaign. That is certainly an approach many companies take at this point, but I'm a very strong believer in being completely done with all of game design before you think about any of that stuff. So any graphics, any marketing, any of that. Having the complete game in front of you, even if it's in a gray box form, will inform all the decisions you have to make about code optimization for the game, what graphics you need, how many models, how much processing power does the game need to render all these things, what the marketing campaign should be focused around, who is the target demographic. All these questions are extremely difficult to answer when a project is first conceived by the director or the producer or the game designers, but all these questions become childishly easy to answer if the game itself is complete, even in a gray box form. And when I'm talking about gray box, I don't just mean in a prototype version, but a gray box version of the entire game, with all its features, all the things that are necessary to make it into a game. And why do I stress this so much? Because you can basically complete a gray box version of a game with a very small number of people relatively quickly, and especially for the game designers, because we have the image of what we're trying to achieve in our mind. Even though we're working with a gray box, we can still do gameplay related tests in the gray box version before we move on to dressing up everything with beautiful graphics and so on. Conversely, if we're not happy with the result, then we haven't wasted the time and the resources of making a high performance server and beautiful graphics and a marketing campaign for all these things. We can keep working on it until we're 100% satisfied, at least within the game design team, and then we can go step on the gas and put in all the beautiful graphics and all the other necessary parts for releasing the game. So coming back to the design document, it should have all the things that we want to implement in the game, all the things that should be in the game to accurately describe the vision we want to achieve. And then our next task is to implement each one of these features. Now, sometimes we're making a game all on our own, so the game designer and the programmer happen to be the same person. Other times, we are different people, so the person actually doing the coding is a different person. And that doesn't mean that the game designer's work is done. Of course, it means that even though the game designer is not writing the code himself, he can still, and he should still, check every feature that is coded and completed by the programmers or the programming team to make sure that it accurately reflects what is in the feature document. Now, of course, here we might discover new problems gameplay-wise, or we might think of something that's really cool to do or to add into the game, or we might find out that a feature that we thought is going to be really good for the game actually doesn't serve the game at all. So there is some wiggle room here, but of course the more wiggle room we allow here, the more the completion date is extended for the game, so we want to avoid this as much as possible. We want to be very conscious of exactly what we need to make this minimum version of the game. After that's complete, we can think about game 2 and game 3 and so on, and what extensions to make. So this answers basically what the day-to-day task is. So every day, either we have to continue writing all the elements necessary to complete a feature for the game, whether that's the main character or the stage or the weapons or the visual effects and so on, or the UI, what sort of information we need. Or if that's already done, then we either implement the features that have been completely described in the document, or if we're not the one who is doing the implementation, then we're certainly checking all the implemented features and make sure that they match the information that's in the game design document. And of course, after this part is complete and we make sure that each feature behaves as the document describes, as we want it to behave, then we simply move on to the next features. We move on to the next feature, or if there's no features left to implement, then we have finished the game. So this cycle continues on and on. So we keep describing features and then implementing them if it makes sense to do it in this order. Sometimes we have to describe multiple features before moving to implementing one of them, because sometimes one feature touches on many areas here. For example, the main character or the weapon of the character, of course, needs the main character to exist, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Also, perhaps we have a very particular type of physics in our game, so that needs to be there too for the weapon to be behaving completely as we want. So sometimes we have to write quite a bit of feature documents before moving on with the implementation, but generally this is the the only two things we need to be concerned with in the day-to-day tasks that we have to do as game designers. So hopefully this sheds a little bit more light into what the day-to-day process is for games. And I know it's super nuanced, and I know there's still a lot of sub-problems and sub-quests that present themselves in this process. So if you have a question about this, feel free to let me know. If you're interested in how we implemented these things for our game, feel free to book a call with me in the link down below. As always, thank you so much for your time, and have fun.